Today we are in chapter 2. Today we're in chapter 2. Before we get started, as always, I want to just see if there are any questions. Are there any questions from our assignment from yesterday? Remember, yesterday you're doing your long-term goal and also your personality assessment. So if you haven't done that yet, please make sure that that is completed by Sunday, right? Now, we introduced the topic of skills yesterday. We talked about, you know, how skills are going to affect what you do, how well you do it. But also, it's important to think about your skills in terms of what companies are seeking. So not just, how they help support your goals, but also making sure that the skills that you have marry with the skills that are needed with organizations. And we talked about how when they promote jobs on Indeed or LinkedIn or wherever, that they'll often showcase these skills that they're looking for, both the harder technical skills and the soft skills. So in addition to that, there are some other fundamental skills that people just expect you to have. Now, this may seem, obvious to some, like reading and writing and speaking and listening and basic math and basic technology skills. But I think, unfortunately, we probably all know people that may have challenges in any of these areas, right? So those of us that start our work, I don't think anybody here is in a job that's going to be extremely administration heavy, even though all of you will be required to do some administration. Is it safe to assume that every company you work for is going to expect you to know how to use a computer? Give me a thumbs up if you agree that most companies, regardless, even if you work in trucking, just expect you to know how to use a computer, right? They will say things like, shoot me an email, right? Or, send this over by that, or send me a fax or whatever. They expect you to know how to do that. Like those are just really basic skills that they assume, right? Or they'll say, yeah, write up that summary you had for me and put it in an email. And they just assume you know what to write and how to write it and what to say, right? And some of us do and some of us don't. So it's important to think through, like, do I have the basic skills? Do I know how to use things like Google and Google Teams and Microsoft Teams? Do I know the difference between a Microsoft suite and a Google suite, which is basically, Microsoft, whether they call it Excel, Word, PowerPoint, but as, if you use Google, they don't call it PowerPoint. Like I know I would always say Excel for Google Sheets and, Google Sheets for Excel, but those are like two different platforms, right? And sometimes people may say, oh, send me over that document, via Google. And you're like, what are you talking about? I know. Oh, today, Cody, you realize that, or you just laughing at me? No, man, I'm telling you, like, I use it interchangeably, but you have to be careful because people don't, right? Some people don't use Microsoft, some people use Google. So a lot of people are using Google Suites now, right? Which is cloud-based, which means that, what is traditionally Word documents, Microsoft, even Microsoft is cloud-based. Like, how many people know the difference between Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Office Suite? Who knows the difference between that? Well, Microsoft 365 is cloud-based. That means it's on the cloud. That means you don't have to download it. The regular Microsoft Office suite is you download it onto your computer, right? So now even Microsoft has a cloud-based system. They call it Microsoft 365. Totally different platform, right? So this terminology where even if we do know some of that stuff, we may not know the right terminology. And just be mindful that companies are expecting it. Most companies are working on the cloud. Most companies don't pay for software to be downloaded nowadays. They work on the cloud. They are either working on Microsoft Cloud or they're working on Google Cloud. So platforms. So it's important for you just to know those small variations, right? Of course, the hard skills are things that we discussed yesterday. And what are those? Those are those other, industry specific technical skills that companies expect you to have. Like, yeah, if you are in electrical or welding or HVAC, yeah, my friend, they expect you to have those skills that you're learning in school. It's the foundation, right? But they are also looking for those soft skills. And yesterday we introduced some soft skills like what teamwork and time management and all those things. Well, in the book in chapter 2, they dig a little deeper and they call them employability skills, right? So what does that mean? You're not employable if you don't have those skills? Well, we could all probably raise our hand to knowing someone that got fired for not having those skills, right? Because you can have technical skills and not have soft skills and not work well on a team. We've seen it before. We probably even work for people that don't have these employability skills. But the book will use words that are interchangeable. So make sure you pay attention to that. Soft skills could be employability skills, foundational skills, workplace skills. We also call them transferable skills. They are all mentioned in chapter 2. Do they all exactly mean the same thing? Not necessarily, because a workplace skill, for example, is going to be very, specific to a company that you work for. As you can imagine, a soft skill that's needed in the veterinary field is going to be different from a soft skill that may be needed in the HVAC field, right? So they all won't have the same skill set, but that's why they put it out there, because, you being strong enough to restrain an animal is very specific in the VA field. Like, you may not need that same amount of strength in the HVAC field, right? But you need to be able to hold some things down. Any VA people out there, working with animals is not for the faint of heart, right? So you need to be, have some type of skills to do that. And those won't be the same skills for everybody. But there are these other categories of soft skills that we want you to think about. And these are what we call thinking skills, people skills, quality skills. So what do you mean thinking skills, Ms. Taylor? Do we all not have the ability to think? Yeah, we have the ability to think, but the question is, do you have the ability to think critically, right? Do you have the ability to think critically? And that is something that we'll discuss when we talk about self-emotional regulation, right? People want you to be able to problem solve. How can you problem solve if you can't think critically? Do you have the ability to work well with others? Do you know how to engage? It's funny, guys, but we don't really think about how we all come from different walks of life. And you may say, Miss Taylor, yes, we do. We think about it every day. Thanks to the media, it's in our faces, right? But I'm not even talking about on the obvious level. Once you pull back those different cultural levels, or even whether you're male or female, just even more obvious, like, do you know how to start a conversation? Let's start there, right? Do you know how to be engaging? Do you know how to train someone else? If someone makes you a supervisor, do you have the ability to know how to train? Do you know how to offer your services up to a teammate, right? Let's pull it all the way back. It's not about the surface stuff, because that is not how companies are ran. Companies are ran on your ability to have these qualities to be engaged with other people, right? Like, being a man or being a woman, that's not gonna cut it. You need other skills. Is that not the truth? Is that not true? We're going to talk about in a couple of weeks how sometimes the most unassuming person can be your best workmate. Has anybody ever had the most unassuming workmate? Maybe you were 20 and your best workmate was like 50 years old and they worked the hardest. Or maybe, you worked in a trucking environment and there's 100-pound female that was outworking the other guy, right? You can't judge a book by its cover, right? Or, you're thinking this one guy, doesn't know anything and he's the smartest person in the bunch, right? So these are the skill sets, and any prudent company, or if you're going to start your own business, those are things that you're looking for, right? Don't If you just pay attention to the surface, you're going to be in trouble. Oh, this guy looks really strong. Yeah, he'll make a good candidate, right? And he turns out to be a dud, right? So you got to pull back the layers on those things, right? When companies talk about ethics, right? Ethics is also going to be something very, very important in all of your businesses, because, and what I was starting to say, we can't all assume people have these things, because, like I said, we all come from different walks of life, and you don't know what a person is bringing to the table. They may look like a duck and it quacks like a duck. You think it's a duck, and it may not be a duck at all, right? So companies have to create these workplace ethics to make sure, listen, I don't know what you consider ethical, because what one person considers an ethical, someone else may not. So the companies have to say, listen, at this company, because we want to keep our customers and we want to keep our business, we are going to lay out in very specific terms what we expect from you. They typically do that via a code of conduct and a code of ethics, right? Can you imagine in any of your fields, there's going to be a lot of ethics. Think about it. In construction, electrical, HVAC, welding, can you imagine the VA? You're going to have a lot of workplace ethics that you need to adhere to. Why is that? Because, my friends, there are some things that can get you put in jail. There are some things that can get you fired. There's some things that can get you put in court. What are you saying, Ms. Taylor? Are you saying that more money, more problems? That's what Biggie Smalls said. Now, that's what I heard from the streets. More money, more problems. The more responsibility you have, the more certifications by your name, the more accountability that you have as well. Do we understand? So what does that mean? That means that once you get your certifications and you get your licenses, people expect you to know what you're doing. Imagine that. Do we go to our accountant or our doctor or whomever and we don't expect them to know what they're doing? Right? They put a sign out that says that they know what they're doing. So once you hit the streets and you say, I'm a certified this and I'm a registered that, people expect you to know what you're doing, and you could get yourself in trouble. And we know that all things that are maybe, unethical, it doesn't mean that they're illegal, but there are some things that are both unethical and illegal. And what do you think you need to pay attention to the most? You better pay attention to, well, you might say both of them, because if you do something unethical, your job may fire you. But if you do something illegal, you can get fired and put in jail. You see my point? So it's up to you to know the difference. The book highlights some obvious ones, like if you're in management, obviously you can't discriminate and harass, that can get you fired and get you sued, right? And you don't want that, because companies a lot of times are not going to support you if you do something illegal, and that is where that fine line is. They'll be like, oh well, we didn't know that Tommy was skimming off the top, or we didn't know that he was cutting corners when he was putting in those HVACs. And something happens, and then now you get sued, the company might get sued, but you can get sued as well, unless they have a whole harmless indemnification clause. But I'm sure you'll learn all about that. But it's going to be important for you to know the difference. Make sense? All right. So let's talk about something else that chapter 2 is going to focus on. They're also going to focus on how you engage when you are online. What did we talk about yesterday? We talked about how you are going to be promoting yourself. If you're in a business, if you're in a career field and you want to work your way up to the top, you want to be that top dog, you want to be very successful, whatever success means to you. Unfortunately, my friends, you are going to have to promote yourself. And nowadays, how do you promote yourself? Online. I mean, I know there may be a couple of happy hours here or there somewhere, but most of the time you have to be online. But you also have to be responsible when you're online. So chapter 2 is talking about this idea of digital citizenship, where it says that you need to be responsible when you are promoting yourself, when you're working on behalf of your organization, protecting data. If some of you are going to be working on the residential side, you may have a lot of personal data of customers. Even if you're working on the commercial side, you may have personal data about companies. You may have personal information about your own company, right? And how do you promote that? What to put online, what not to put online? How are you specifically using, online, modalities now? Many of you probably have some type of social accounts, right? How many people are using online, right? How many, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn? Give me a thumbs up if you're online. Well, you probably have seen this if you're online. How many people have seen somebody lose their job because of something they put online? Give me a quick thumbs up. Heard about that. They call them Karens and Daryls. I don't know what the terminology is. I'm making it up. But we've all heard about people lose their job by what they put online. Why is that? Well, we call it a digital footprint. Everything that you post online, my friends, Twitter, X, Facebook, blah, 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 all of that can be seen. There are companies that do searches on you. What? That's so tacky. That's so invasive. It may be all of that, and they still do it. There are companies that do searches on you. Some companies may have very sensitive contracts and they want to make sure that everybody they're bringing in is not cray-cray. Maybe the last person they brought in was a little crazy. So now they're a little, skittish and they want to do a background check. I've seen CEOs do it. I personally thought it was a little, too much, but hey, it happens. What are they going to find if they Google you? Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's what you want to do. I tell everybody, and we'll continue to discuss this. You need to start to think about, let me set up a professional online. So if you have Twitter fingers or X fingers, whatever you call them nowadays, and you're used to being very political, or maybe you're posting some stuff you think is funny, I get it. But when you become a professional, you're going to have to scale some of that back. I always tell people, if you have a personal account, be careful what you put on there, but start a professional account, because if a company Googles you and they Google your name, you want them to pull up something professional, because now you're promoting yourself on a professional level. You want to keep your personal and keep your professional. Back in the day, we didn't have to worry about our private lives because we didn't throw it on the internet, right? So if you want to start, thinking through, this internet is a public modality. I don't know why people think, oh, it's my private account, but it's on a public platform. So you're still making it public. Am I missing something here? Right. So be mindful of that. I mean, anybody have kids? Give me a thumbs up if you have kids, or anybody have kids. So you may remember, I don't know if you guys remember, but not too long ago, a teacher lost her job because of a special page she had. Now I'm going to ask you, you parents, or even if you're not a parent yet, would you be upset if your sixth grader came home and told you that they found a special page from their social studies teacher and it wouldn't talk about social studies? Would that bother you? Would you say, well, I guess you got social studies and a health class? Yeah, I did. Yeah. I know. Like me personally, I don't know if I'd be able to look at my teacher the same after that. Well, they found it and she got fired and she sued. I'm not sure where it's at now in the court system. But some people argue, oh, that's her personal page. Ain't nothing personal on public. It's a public page, right? It may be her page, but that's where the privacy begins and ends. It's on a public domain. So you just have to be careful because people will judge. Now, I'm sorry. I don't want Miss Sarah teach. No, I can't get over the visual. Now I can't, what am I going to do for Teacher Appreciation Day, right? You done messed me up, Miss Sarah. So people are going to judge you. Companies have a right to say, no, what do you think is going to happen to that school? That school is now infamous now because of Miss Sarah, right? And you can lose students because of Miss Sarah. So, you have to think through when you make these types of decisions, when you're working on behalf of an institution, that and you're an agency to the institution is what they call it. You have to work on behalf of the organization that you're with. Now, if you don't want to do that, you work for your own company, then you can take your own risks, right? So just be mindful that digital footprint is something we'll continue to talk about. As I said before, a lot of the companies are using cloud-based systems now. So, and it's just basically, it's not really a cloud. We call it, it's it's really a large server machine that you can send your information to. So instead of you having your computer, everybody has computers, right? So if you take your little laptop, or not everybody, but whoever has computers, right, your desktop laptop, you can only have so much on your computer, which is memory and storage, right? So if a company obviously has a lot of information, they typically have really large, what we call storage units that they keep their information on. Where some companies are so big, they can't have these big storage units everywhere. So they basically rent out storage through like a Google or who else does it? I want to say Amazon does it, Microsoft does it. And what they do, they go and they build a bunch of land and they put these huge storages, information storage, and they call them servers, and they let you rent space there, right? That's all it is. So when we talk about cloud, we're basically saying they're holding your information for you in these servers. It's become very controversial because they're clearing out a lot of land to build these servers, and AI is one of the ones that have come up under scrutiny because it takes a lot of storage to have AI, and so they're building these servers mainly in Texas, I want to say, and there's one in California, Texas, some other places, right? But and it takes up a lot of electricity too. So go figure. So, the environmental people can tell you all about that kind of stuff, but that's what the cloud is all about, right? So, obviously if you are working on your company's equipment or, some type of, hardware, your laptop, or sometimes they may give you guys handheld devices, you got to be careful what you download, right? Be careful with that, make sure there's no licenses, there's nothing illegal. Y'all know. So that is going to come up, but clearly, if that is a thing, your company will let you know that. Intellectual property is just stuff that it could be a company's um, personal invention, and they want to make sure that whatever it is not copyrighted or plagiarized or anything like that. So, in your respective fields, it just depends on what that could be something as simple as how they um, take in clients. It can be, sometimes it could be little gadgets that they've used. It could be anything proprietary, which means it gives their company a competitive advantage. You may have access to some of that stuff, and they just want to make sure that you understand that you need to follow the rules in protecting that intellectual property, right? So, and then etiquette is just as you are online, even before you start taking on a job, that you are using proper etiquette online. Have we not all gone to horrible sites now? Let me not lie, I try not to go on to X, but was anybody on Twitter before it was X? Any Twitter people? Was it not a better thing? Twitter used to be, for those of you that don't know, it used to be a premier news outlet. Like, if you didn't get your news from television, like, it would be so reputable just to go to Twitter because everybody was using it. Companies used it a lot. So you didn't even have to like go to like a local news station. You could just get it straight from the horse's mouth. And it was everywhere. It was so reputable. It was, every company wanted to be on Twitter to push out information. I mean, there was so much information on Twitter that you had to subscribe to a lot of that stuff. Now, if you compare that to what it is today, ew. Like, and I'm just talking from a professional standpoint. Like, I don't like a lot of garbage. I don't listen. If you want to do social stuff, do it on a platform like, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know what you do, but my expectation is like a LinkedIn, a Twitter, stuff where I need the truth. I need honest. Obviously in my industry, I don't need a bunch of garbage. I don't need a bunch of opinionated stuff. If I want to do that, I can listen to a podcast. I just need the raw facts. I need research data. I don't need all that blah, 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 blah. And now for me, Twitter is just a bunch of just, I just am lonely today. So let me just go say something, right? It's just so weird. And so it has gone down. We'll talk a lot about that, but the etiquette and proper etiquette online is called netiquette is out the window. And I know because everybody, so sometimes, these platforms have to cater to what I call the lowest common denominator. That means the person that has no sense of etiquette whatsoever, all the way up to the most prestigious person. And you're going to find everything in between, right? So you have to be mindful of that because you could find yourself getting really, really disturbed by some of the things that you see. And just remember, it could be some toothless person that somebody just showed him how to use or her how to use a cell phone, and they could just write any ridiculous thing, all the way up to someone that speaks 10,000 languages and wanted to tell you about how the nuclear system is going to affect the ozone layer in 2030, right? So you can get any extreme of those two things, but what we're concerned about is you, right? What you need not to do, right? Again, you need to practice good etiquette at all things. Oh my God, Miss Taylor, you talk about I need to be so stuffy. Well, this is business. So if you want to, you know, put an image out about yourself, and let's face it, my friends, this is a competition. This is a competition, is it not? Like, I know y'all may all be friends, but at the end of the day, the person to the left or right of you is your competition, right? And so, how are you going to present yourself, especially now that you're in these industries? Industries are small. I'm in the education industry, I'm in the contracting industry, I'm in the grant industry, and my industry is small. Like, I could tell you what is going on in my industries easily. So your industry is not, once you get involved in an industry, your industry is small. You're going to bump into the same people. You're going to get to know what companies do what companies have what contracts, and eventually you will build a reputation for yourself, right? So yes, you want to, powwow and all of that, but at the end of the day, you need to be mindful that, hey, this is a competition. So don't shoot yourself in the foot by starting out wrong and messing yourself up, with all that social media stuff, right? So I'm just all I'm gonna say about that. Now, lastly, the book talks a lot about profession certifications and all these other things that you'll need and why it's going to be important. And we're going to circle back and talk about that certification stuff when we start talking about those short-term goals and things that you'll need to do to make sure that you are meeting that long-term goal strategy. All right. So that's it. I want to talk really quickly about your assignment for today. This is very, very important. Very, 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 very important. You will be checking in with career services to do two things. One is to have your resume reviewed or written, and they are going to sign off on your resume. I know some people may have already had that for whatever reason. I don't care as long as they sign off on it. Set that appointment, even if you set an appointment just to say, hey, I'm going to set this appointment because I need to turn in a time for Miss Taylor, and have them sign off on that resume, because next Thursday you are going to submit your signed resume that Career Services has seen. Please understand this, because a lot of people will say, but I have a resume. I'm not here to check your resume. We'll talk about resumes on Thursday. Tomorrow, I'm here to make sure that they've seen it, because I'm not helping you get a job. Career Services is. So I'm going to talk to you from an academic standpoint of how you write resumes tomorrow, but they're physically going to help you write your resume. And so so by you turning in a resume, it's not benefiting me. You turning in a signed resume that Career Services has seen is what's going to benefit you, because they are the ones that are promoting you to potential jobs with companies. So they may take your resume and say, hey, I have this great candidate. If they've never seen your resume, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. So giving me your resume without it being signed by them saying that they've seen it is a disservice to you. You understand? Like, a lot of people try to give me their resume. I'm like, that's not the point of this assignment. The point of this assignment is to check a box saying, yes, Career Services has approved my resume. You understand? So what you're going to do today, you're going to set a schedule. In that assignment, all of you are in different campuses. You may have already heard about this. Go in there now. Go in there now. Now, you guys get the inside scoop because all the morning classes, y'all are first. Remember, there's 100 more students that have to do this tonight. So get in there and get your assignment. Get the time that you want now. You're also simultaneously going to set up another meeting with them to do your practice interview. Do it now. So it's going to be two different dates that you need to put in this assignment. Will Career Services maybe combine it later? They might. I don't know. I don't even care. But right now, when you go on there, it's going to say, click here for some of the campuses, click here for a resume interview date, click here for a mock interview. Make sure you do that and turn that in for your assignment. Like I said, you guys have the competitive advantage. You're in the morning class. Now there's 100 other students in the morning class. So I'm going to say do it now. Don't wait. Don't be like, oh, I'm going to go have some breakfast. Do it now so you can get the time that you want. All right? All right. So here is your question for the day. Don't leave without getting the question for the day. I always saw somebody jump off. Your question for today is, name one quality that sets you above the competition and one quality you would improve upon. Well, how do I know, Ms. Taylor, what my qualities are that's above everybody else? You just say something that you think is a quality. Maybe you already have a business. Maybe you've already ran a business before. Maybe you already have experience in the industry that you're going into. Whatever it is, right? Maybe you've done some volunteering. I don't know, whatever it is. Name one quality that you think sets you above the competition and one you need to improve on. This is your participation question for today. All right, my friends, if we don't have any other questions, I will see you guys back here. Hasta mañana. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.